All right, hello everyone. This is a webcast of the advising workshop that I gave a few days ago for the College of Science and Technology. And it turns out I'm probably not going to have time to hold another advising workshop in person this semester, and so I thought it would be best if I just went ahead and recorded a presentation of this so that you all can watch it on your own from my YouTube channel. I will continue to offer advising workshops starting in the fall. Jennifer and I will be doing that fairly regularly to make sure that all of our advisors are aware of policies, practices, and procedures. So the goals for this particular webcast is to talk a little bit about good advising, what the role of the Dean's Office is in advising here at USM, review some of the academic policies, certainly not all of the academic policies, but those that are certainly more germane to the advising process here. Talk about how course substitutions are done, and then review a few components of the DPR. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the DPR in this particular webcast. So good advising, I think good advising really is good mentoring, and I think the Mentoring Matters logo that you see there is actually quite important. And so one of the things that we want to do at the university is get away from advising just being a session about course scheduling and actually move it more to where it's a discussion between you and your advisee in a mentoring capacity. So there is a nice advising checklist that is on the Student Success website. This was developed in the College of Arts and Letters, and I think it's a pretty good checklist and will serve our needs fairly well. Certainly, there are probably some additional things that you could think to add to this checklist for your particular program, and so don't take this as an absolute checklist, but think about some additional things that you might add as you go through your advising processes. So, of course, before you have an advising appointment, you need to make sure that you get in touch with your advisees to let them know when you're available to meet with them or how you're available to meet with them. Remember, not all advising sessions have to be face-to-face. I have certainly advised a few students over the phone before. I've advised a few students by Skype before, just given the situation that they were in at the time. We made time using alternative methods to get their advisement session. But nonetheless, you need to let your advisees know when you're available, how to sign up for an advisement session. Everybody does that a little bit differently. I do that by email in my Outlook calendar, but some people do it by hanging a sheet on their door. Whatever the case may be, make sure that your advisees know how they can get in touch with you and make an appointment for advisement. I would strongly suggest that you have them review their own DPR, that they draft their schedule. Definitely they should be placing courses that they want to take in their shopping cart within SOAR, and then let them know that they need to be thinking about a variety of questions to ask you in terms of their career plans and other things. And then, again, that gets more into that mentoring. During the appointment, make sure you review with the student their DPR. Make sure you pay attention to all those areas that clearly say not satisfied, and make sure that they are on track to graduate in a reasonable amount of time. Make sure you review with them their list of remaining courses and their remaining requirements. Look at their schedule that they've hopefully brought with you. Keep in mind their other obligations that they may have, and talk to them about what it really means to be in a class for 3 hours a week, or in a 3 credit hour class. It's not just the in-class time of 150 minutes, but there's that outside class time too that's going to require approximately 6 hours each week for a 3-hour course in terms of the reading, the writing, and other things that they have to do. Make sure you remind them of the key dates and where they can find those key dates. Deadlines are always something that throws our students for a loop, especially when it comes to applying for graduation. down here in the dean's office, we have quite a few students that like to come in fairly late. And remember, there are those new dates now for um, graduation applications, and there are some fees associated with that if they miss certain deadlines. So make sure you go through that with them and that they understand um, those fees. Review the students' interim grades in SOAR. That's very useful. Gives you kind of an idea of how they're doing at that particular point, and gives you an opportunity to discuss areas where they may be deficient or uh, could set them back. And so we need to try to intervene at that point as much as possible. I would suggest you refer the students to the Success website for resources, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Make sure you mention to them any possibilities that may exist for summer enrollment as a way to get ahead or to stay on track, especially for some students who may have not got the grade that they actually needed to progress. They can sometimes make that up through summer courses. And then, spend most of your time with them talking about their future plans. What is it that they want to do? Their career options. Do they want to do something in the summer in terms of an internship or an externship? Do they want to stick around campus and maybe work in somebody's laboratory or on somebody's research project or somebody's scholarly activity? Those are kinds of things that actually should be talking, or we should be taking up most of our time with the students. And then, of course, make sure that you allow them to have plenty of time to ask you any questions that they have. After the appointment, you need to make sure that the not eligible to enroll, the NEE hold has been lifted in SOAR. Many of you can do that directly. Some departments do it a little differently. I know in chemistry and biochemistry we have our administrative assistant do that for us after we fill out a piece of paper. And so it's a little different everywhere, but make sure that that NEE hold gets lifted as soon as they've been advised, because they'll need to be able to get in there and finish the enrollment process when their window opens up. And then, of course, very important here, send any needed course substitutions, waivers, change of major, minor forms, whatever the case may be, to the dean's office for processing as soon as possible. When a student comes in, if they're a transfer student, after that first semester, we really should have all GEC course subs or anything like that that needs to be taken care of at that point. We don't want to see substitutions being done the semester that they plan on graduating. It's not fair to the student. It puts a lot of burden on the administrative process of how these things get done, because everybody wants our students to graduate. But the sooner that we can get these substitutions in, the sooner the student can actually make a sound plan and path towards graduation. So very, very important. Don't forget to get those course subs in as soon as you know about them. There are a number of tools that we have at the university for helping you become a good advisor. This is the advising pyramid for the historically difficult courses, otherwise known as HDC courses. And you can see that the higher up on the pyramid you go, the more historically difficult, if you will, these courses can be. And so what you need to do when you're advising your students, make sure as much as possible that these historically difficult courses don't clump up into a particular semester. Now, in the College of Science and Technology, I know that's going to be difficult to do for a number of our programs, just given the number of historically difficult courses that they have to take. But nonetheless, pay particular attention to it. If you've got a student that has to take a couple of historically difficult courses, that's fine. But if, for example, if you could move a history, which is in the historically difficult course list up here at the top of the pyramid, to another semester when they may not be taking as many historically difficult courses, or maybe the Philosophy 171 course, that'd be a good thing to do so that you can keep them from having to take 3 and 4 historically difficult courses within the same semester. And remember, historically difficult courses mean that these courses have quite high DFW I rates. And so, if we can space those out just a little bit so that students can have an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time on those courses without being overburdened, I think that's a good thing. Another advising tool that we currently have, I had Dr. Arrington over in institutional research help develop a query for me. Here's the query. You can see it's DPTIR underscore advisees underscore GPA. If you have access to queries, you can actually pull this, and this will pull the GPA data for your advisees, and then you can plot that GPA out by term and get kind of an idea of their GPA trends. Now here's a couple of my advisees, and so what I did was I set up a pivot chart. If you don't know how to set up pivot charts, feel free to come by and talk with me sometime, and I can help you set these up. It's not hard. As long as you're running a Windows machine with Excel, it turns out that Mac will not do pivot charts, or at least Excel won't do pivot charts in Mac yet. They'll do pivot tables, but not pivot charts. And so what you can see is I've got the term plotted on the x-axis and the GPA on the y-axis, and you can see, for example, how the student has been doing both in their semester GPA and their cumulative GPA over time, and so it gives me an idea of their performance. You'll notice that 4161 in both of these cases goes down to 0, and that's because when I pulled this query, 4161 grades hadn't been posted yet, so you don't pay attention to that 4161. In fact, I could have excluded it from the graph, but I just didn't here. And so you can look at both the cumulative GPA, how they're improving, and kind of get an idea of how they're trending. So I always look at this prior to any advisement session that I have with my advisees. It kind of gives me an idea of how they're trending, and gives me a performance indicator that I like to look at. I suspect that this query will become obsolete once Starfish comes online at the university, but I don't know exactly when that's going to happen. So in the meantime, using this query actually, I find it to be quite helpful. Another good advising or a piece to good advising is the Finish in 4 campaign that we are starting to push here at the university. We want to have our students finish in 4 if possible, and so you'll notice that I pulled some data through IR from fall 14 all the way back to fall of 02, and this is looking at our students in the College of Science and Technology. For those students that in their first year attempted 30 or more credit hours and earned 30 or more credit hours. Okay, so a student comes in, maybe they took 15 and 15, or maybe they took any combination, including the summer, to get to 30 hours in their first calendar year. And so what you'll notice is that the first year GPA of these students is actually quite good. It's greater than 3. And you might be thinking, well, this is all the honors college students that do this, but in fact it's not. If you look at the average ACT, you'll see that these students, while they have good ACT scores, the average is certainly well below that of what is required to be in the honors college. And so these are not all honors college students that are in this cohort that we're looking at here, but they do have a reasonably decent ACT. You might think that these were all a group of students that come from wealthier or more affluent families and have access to a lot of resources, but in fact a good third of these students actually are Pell eligible, meaning that they did not come from highly wealthy families. And so trying to dispel some of the myths about whether or not our students can actually be successful by taking more than a 12-hour full load each semester to be successful. What you'll notice over here is that the 4-year graduation rate for these students that complete 30 or more credit hours in their first year is actually a little bit better than our 6-year graduation rate right now. About 50% of these students on average can graduate in 4 years. The 5-year graduation rate goes to 73%, and then our 6-year graduation rate, which is what we are required to report, is about 76%. So students just in their first year, if they can complete 30 or more hours successfully at the university, their graduation rate as a cohort is much better than those students who attempt 30 credit hours but don't earn 30 credit hours. So sometimes it's about getting that commitment of the student to finish what they start. It seems to be kind of what's important. So I would use the data that we have here to think about, when you're sitting down and talking with a student, to think about whether or not that student would be a good candidate to encourage them to take an extra class to get to that 15-hour mark so that they can achieve those 30 hours in that first year. And so we definitely want them to start here and finish here in 4 or 5 years. So we want them to finish as soon as possible and be successful. Okay, so the Dean's Office, again, we're here to assist our ACA, Jennifer Hicks. You can see a picture of her here. Her picture is larger than both mine and Dr. Evans because she's the one who's going to be handling 99% of all the advising paperwork that comes through the office. I do want to mention just a minute about Dr. Evans. Jeff is our pre-professional advisor, and so if you're sitting down talking with a student and they even hint that they may be thinking about medical school, dental school, vet school, law school, whatever the case may be, you should, as part of your advising session, direct them to Dr. Evans down in the Dean's office so that he can sit with them and talk with them about the requirements that they're going to have for their med school, dental school, whatever the case may be. Even if they're not sure, it would be a good idea for them to go down and meet with him because they don't want to wait to the very end to be preparing for these types of experiences. So he's here to assist them in those areas, and he certainly knows a lot more about the requirements for those various programs certainly than I do, or that many of us do actually. There are a number of resources on the web that you can use in the Dean's office. You can look down here next to my picture. You'll see advising resources and forms. That's a great place to get all the course substitution forms and other things that you might need during your advisement process. We also have the Student Success at Southern Miss website. I'm a big fan of this website, and actually I've made that my home page for a variety of reasons. One, the search engine here works a lot better than the university search engine for finding information on the USM website, so I highly recommend that. It's also got your login center where you can get into your Blackboard or your emails, get into SOAR, those kinds of things. But also has a lot of information for faculty and staff about advising. Maybe you have an advisee who needs to know where a tutorial center is. You can find that kind of information. That would be under the For Students, but you can look up that information on this website very, very easily and direct them to the area of help that they may need. The Registrar's Office also has an academic advising website that has plenty of information for you. You'll notice the deadlines that are shown here were for the fall. Those new deadlines that you see here are March 1, March 28, and April 12th now. So these deadlines need to be updated, but nonetheless, this is what those new deadlines are going to be. So plenty of opportunities for you to find resources that you need about advising on a variety of web pages. The College of Science and Technology Advising Resources page that I showed you earlier, this is what it looks like when you click on that link. There is an area where you can find out information about the substitution process. This is a Word document that gives you the steps. You can find out how to access the Student Program Plan panel in SOAR. There's a series of steps that are outlined here. You can find out how to do a transfer evaluation, change a major, all that kind of information you can find here. You can find all of the forms that you need to do substitutions and for transfer credit and graduation ceremony petitions. All that information is going to be available on the College of Science and Technology website. So let's look at a couple of those forms, and I'm just doing these as they're listed on the website, not in a particular order of importance, but you may have a student that comes in that wants to get a second baccalaureate degree after they have completed a first degree at Southern Miss. That's actually quite common. You need to complete this form. and this form needs to come to the dean's office. So you will fill in what's going to be utilized as the student's capstone, writing intensive, computer competency, and oral communications in these boxes, and then you have room to add the other requirements that they'll need for that second degree. You'll total the total here, but you need to remember that there's going to be at least 30 to 32 hours that they have to get that second degree. So you can't tell a student, well, you got your first bachelor's degree with us, and if you just take another class or two, we can give you a second bachelor's degree. That's a no-no. That's a non-starter right there. You got to have at least 30 to 32 hours there. You can make some additional comments here, things that you want to capture, and then get all of the signatures. So it goes, student will sign and agree to it, the advisor agrees to it, the chair agrees to it, and then it comes to the dean's office. So if we see the advisor and the chair signature, the dean's office is going to look at it to make sure that it meets the minimum requirements, and then we'll sign off on it and move it forward. The second baccalaureate degree information can also be found in the bulletin. And what you'll see is that you're required to have at least 25% of the credit hours required for a first degree, for a second degree. And that's why we end up with that 30 to 32 hours, because some programs have 120, some have 124. That's why you have the range there. But you can find all of the actual policy information in the bulletin. Request for undergraduate GEC course substitutions. I want to pay particular attention to this particular form. You'll have some students who transfer in that may have come from a university or a community college. It's not part of our articulation agreement, and we'll need to do a GEC course sub. So perhaps they took a particular English course, for example, that didn't come in as a typical GEC like we would have, but you could request that actually be substituted. These GEC course substitution forms need to be completed quickly. So the first advising session you have with a transfer student, figure out what they need to have substituted within the GEC and get those forms going. You do not have to, as an advisor, be absolutely knowledgeable completely in this area. Okay, you can just tell the student that you are going to make the request on their behalf. You saying that does not mean that you've approved it. The approval process actually includes you as advisor, your chair, then us as the dean's office, and then it could go to the GEC department chair, the GEC college dean, and then the provost. And it may even include the GEC committee, depending on whether or not it's an unusual case. Notice I keep talking about transfer students, because students that start at USM, there should never be a GEC course substitution form filled out for them. They have plenty of options within the GEC 01 through 05 to complete, and I know those courses are offered quite regularly and quite frequently, 3 semesters out of the spring, summer, and fall. So plenty of opportunity. A couple of things to keep in mind is that course prefix by itself is not a rationale for a GEC course substitution. So for example, if a student wanted to try to substitute a music performance course for Music 165, you can't argue, well, this is okay because it's a music class. In fact, Music 165 is a music appreciation class. So if you were going to have a course sub for a student, it would need to be somewhere similar to what we're offering. It doesn't have to be identical, but it needs to be, a non-performance course, if, for example, in the music situation. Very important, too, that you gather all the required documents. Make sure that course descriptions or syllabus, if available, is at your fingertips. That needs to be forwarded with this form as well. I have my students, when they want to put together a GEC course sub, I have them go and look at the university or college where they came from, get me the course description from their online bulletin, and if they happen to have a syllabus that they had from the time that they took that class, we take that and append it on. So, you should also try to avoid obvious things that aren't going to substitute. For example, an English class couldn't be substituted for a math class, those kinds of things. Don't forward those obvious situations. But if it's if a student took a history class at a particular college, they think it would count for hours. We can push that through and see whether or not it would be accepted by the provost. And so, just putting in the request does not mean that it's actually been substituted until everybody signs off on it and the student's been notified that the GEC course sub has been approved. You can find more information in the bulletin on alternative credit for the general education. So here's the process you can see here for putting together that substitution request. Up here at the top, you can see some additional things that can be used to give alternative credit, for example, AP exams, CLEP credit, etc. Request for undergraduate major minor course substitutions. This form, if you'll notice, only goes to the dean and the ACA. So it doesn't go to the provost is what I'm trying to say here. It does have to be signed by you and your chair. But this would be substitutions within your major. So you may have a student that took a particular course at a particular institution that it didn't get transferred in such that it's obvious where it belongs. You need to make the call and put in a course substitution. Other requests for exceptions, this might include the hours to degree, the 45 hours at the 300, 400 level, or at least the 21 of the 30 hours in residence, or a bulletin extension. So for example, let's say you have a student that needs to take an additional year to finish here at USM, but their bulletin's about to expire. You can request that the bulletin actually be extended an additional year, put in a rationale, and then we can get that moving through the system. And here's some information from the bulletin on the choice of bulletin. And so remember, a student can't have a bulletin that's more than 6 years old at the time of graduation. But if there was a situation that extended their stay at USM, we could ask for an extension of that particular bulletin for that particular student. Permission to transfer credit, this is very important. Let's say you have an advisee who says, I'm going to go home this summer and I'm going to take a course at my local community college in, I don't know, let's say Wisconsin somewhere. You would want to sit down with them before they ever do that and get permission to transfer that course. Very important that we do this so that it's written down and that a student knows exactly what it's going to count for. So for example, let's say they wanted to take their math course at their community college back home in Wisconsin. They would put what course they desire to take, what the USM equivalent would be here. For example, maybe it's Math 101. Since that would be a GEC course, you would mark yes, and then you would write a justification for the request. Okay, you need to do that for each course that they would be. If it's a GEC course, you'll need to attach a course description and syllabus with the request so that we can make sure that that's correct. The student also needs to certify that they'll not be enrolled at USM and that they understand these certain things so that they know what these transfer credits are going to affect on their DPR. And then the student needs to sign, the advisor needs to sign, the department chair, and then it'll come down to Jennifer, and she'll sign on behalf of the dean's office if she approves that particular transfer course meeting the USM equivalent. Petition for probation continued. The form is available on our website. I know many of you have filled these out before. Your student should already have A, completed when they come and talk to you. They should have their unofficial transcript or DPR from the registrar's office. And then you're going to spend time talking with them about Part B here. So you would mark A, you would list the courses that these students need, and then you could mark B within B to say what kind of GPA they need to have for the term, whatever the conditions may be that you set up as part of your advisement session, and then additional conditions. I use additional conditions an awful lot. Most of my advisees actually are on probation, and I will put in here that the student needs to come and see me prior to midterm. Uh, so that's part of the condition of my probation continued an awful lot. Another thing that I'll put here is that if we have a student who's on probation, they don't have a 2.0 cumulative GPA yet, and they can't transfer to another program, or another program won't accept them because they're on probation, but they have indicated to me that it is their desire to transfer, I will put here in the additional conditions something like get your GPA up to 2.0 and then transfer out of chemistry, biochemistry to whatever the case may be. Make sure you get all the required signatures and then send this down to the dean's office. There is a new form. This looks a little different for the suspension clearance. Very similar to the other that you see before. The only thing that's really different between this and the probation continued is that when the student comes back from being on suspension, they have a requirement that they have at least a 2.25 GPA. That's out of the bulletin. So you can't put here that they only need a GPA of 2.0, okay? They have to have a minimum of a 2.25 GPA, but you can set that a little higher if you feel necessary for whatever the student's situation may happen to be. There are some policies within the bulletin that you need to be aware of on academic probation. You can see the situations here. I won't spend too much time. You all can read this on your own, but this gives an idea of what it means to be on probation. Academic suspension, a little longer. A student will be suspended from the university the first semester he or she does not earn at least a 2 while on academic probation continued. Okay? Regardless of the hours attempted or probation status, any student earning a semester GPA of 000 will also be suspended from the university. Okay? And a student who's placed on academic suspension may not enroll at the University of Southern Mississippi until one full semester has passed. And full semester includes fall, spring, or summer. Okay? The student may choose to take courses in another regionally accredited institution and may transfer those credits back to the university, assuming the colleges meet USM criteria for transfer credits. So it'd be a good idea if you know a student's going to be on suspension and they come and talk to you, but they want to take courses somewhere else and try to transfer them in. Have them complete that permission to transfer credit form that we talked about earlier. Okay. There is also the academic restart policy that I think you all need to be aware of. So you could have a situation where a student doesn't complete their degree at USM and leaves. So maybe they came here for a semester, they left. If they've been out for 24 consecutive months, that is 2 full academic years, and they've not taken classes anywhere else, they may be eligible for academic restart. So perhaps they came their fall semester, the only semester they were here. They've pretty much so got D's and F's and everything, really bad GPA. And they laid out for 24 months, got a job doing something, and then matured a little bit, decided to come back. It might be best to do an academic restart on those students, which basically wipes that semester clean. It still will appear on the transcript, but it wipes it clean for GPA purposes and kind of gives them this clean slate, as we like to say, to get started. They can it may be an option, but they have to understand that, let's say they had they're thinking about this and they had a class where they got an A and the rest of them they got D's and F's in, everything gets wiped. They can't pick and choose the courses. So very important that that you make that clear to them, that that's going to completely wipe out their prior USM attempts. You need to be aware of the academic standards, so including transfer hours. If a student has attempted 0 to 14 hours, they have to have a minimum cumulative GPA of 1.5. This was one of the things that when I first started advising that I didn't realize. I had a student one time who just started. They had only taken 12 hours, but they had below a 2. And I thought, you should be on academic probation, but in fact they had greater than a 1.5, so they weren't on academic probation yet. They were still in good academic standing based on these requirements, and so they could then proceed um, to take classes without having to come see me and get probation and continued paperwork filled out. If they've completed between 15 and 29 hours, they have to have a cumulative GPA of 1.75, and after they've completed 30 and above, they have to maintain a 2.0 or better from the university standpoint to stay in good academic standing. Administrative withdrawal. You may have a student who was doing quite well, had some sort of life-altering experience that happened one semester and came back, and afterwards they continued to do well, and they want to go through and clean up that bad semester and repeat everything in there because something beyond their control. This is a situation where you would consider an administrative withdrawal. Now, I will tell you, down here in the dean's office, we are going to adhere to this criteria pretty strongly. So they need to be in good academic standing both prior to that semester that they want the administrative withdrawal and after that. Okay, they have to have a track record of good performance both prior to and after um, the semester in question. Also, they can only do this once. So if you've got a student who, to them, they want to clean that up, but really it's not that bad, you may want to encourage them to hold off on that, because once they pull the trigger on this, they can never use it again. So make sure that they're aware of that. Course repeat and grade replacement. We have the option for students to take up to 12 hours and repeat to improve their GPA, and that's their USM GPA. And once a course grade is marked as repeated, it becomes part of the official academic record and cannot be reassigned to another course. Make sure that students understand that once they've repeated a course and had it marked as repeated, not just that they retook it, but that they went to the registrar's office and said, I want to replace that grade with my repeat, that's taking away from those 12 hours of repeats that they can utilize. Okay, so make sure that they understand that we can't wait till the end then and reassign those to perhaps some other courses that it would have been better placed for. So they need to be aware of that. Okay, so here's an example of a DPR. Under the general degree requirements, make sure that when you're looking at your DPRs that you pay attention to their catalog year, their particular plan of study. You need to look to see whether or not things are satisfied or not. So you can see here that certain things are satisfied, some things are not satisfied. They're in good academic standing, all that's satisfied. Always pay attention to the satisfieds and the unsatisfieds on the DPR. So for example, if you look at this particular section of the DPR, undergraduate minimum hours requirement says not satisfied. Tells you here the units required, the units used, and how many they need. You can see here at the senior institution hour credit, it's been satisfied, and here at the undergraduate 45-hour requirement, it's listed as not satisfied. So you'll need to pay attention to these things as your students are progressing towards their graduation. I want to show you an example of a degree progress report that required us to do some course substitutions. This was for a particular student that I had as an advisee who transferred to us from a university that did things very, very differently than how we do them here at the University of Southern Mississippi. And so these things came in as chemistry elective courses with these funny numbers, these funny course numbers, this 701 and then AAA, triple B, triple C, whatever the case may be. And these came in as chemistry electives. I had to, as an advisor, sit down and look at these particular courses that the student had and determine whether or not they would apply to some of our courses here at USM. Took a little bit of effort on my part, but after that was looked at, what we discovered was that elective 701 triple B and 701 triple C would had similar course content to our Chemistry 311 and 311 laboratory, our analytical chemistry sequence. And so we were able to do a course substitution on what these electives were, which, um, the system just didn't know how to handle these courses coming in from this particular college. And you can see on the DPR here how it listed that um, these courses were redirected to count for the 311L and the other things per our request in the course substitution. Okay, I hope the advising workshop, at least as a video, helped a little bit. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact either me or Jennifer Hicks. We're more than happy to help in any way that we can.